have been made, and it's time to hear from the jury. But first, absolute shock in Michigan as the $6 million a year coach of the Wolverine football team is in the middle of a salacious scandal that has cost him his job and now has him locked up in jail. Coach Sherrone Moore in court today will show you what happened. You'll hear the explosive allegations as we break it all down.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And we've got a packed hour for you. So get ready, get set, let's go. Let's start with Michigan, big-time football program. Now, for those of you not familiar, you don't follow college football, there's a handful of programs around the country that is just huge. And I mean like big business, big money, and a big deal. And we're talking about a big deal, not just to the school, because these programs fund programs for the entire school. It's big TV money. It's big for the alum. It's just a huge, huge deal. And Michigan is one of those programs. Always in the mix, talking about will they or won't they win the national championship this year? Will they or won't they be number one? How many hundreds of thousands of people are going to show up for their games at the stadium, right? It's big time. Okay. So their coach was a big time coach. Made $6 million a year coaching the team. That's a lot. It's a lot of money for the coach, right? His name is Sherrone Moore. So this is an unbelievable position to be the coach of Michigan. It's reaching the top of your profession if you're in college football. Like I said, a handful of programs, a handful of schools are in the upper echelon of college football. Michigan is one of them. This is the job. You get it. You never want to leave. You're not going to like, oh, I quit this because I'm going to get a job over there. No, you stay as long as you can. You've reached the top of your profession, and that's where this man was. But this year, they lost the big game, which is their big rivalry, to Ohio State. Ohio State has another good team this year, but Michigan, Ohio State, for both teams, is always such a huge game. It usually has big implications, but it's the rivalry game, and it's the one that year in and year out everyone's going to remember. Who won this year? Well, he lost the big game. And sometimes when the coach loses the big game, you lose your job. Well, this coach did lose his job, but it wasn't because he lost the big game. He's got much bigger problems now. Problems that are so big, and he's now a criminal defendant. Is in court, his first appearance. He's not dressed up in his Wolverine outfit, no. He's got his jail uniform on. Unbelievable. What a fall from grace when you talk about the contrast between where he was and where he is now. Worlds apart. On the right-hand side of the screen, you're at the top of your profession. On the left-hand side of the screen, you are obviously at the lowest point of your life. And that's the reality for coach or former coach Sherrone Moore. Well, he was in court today being arraigned. I'm going to show you what happened so you can hear some of these shocking allegations and the things that led up to this moment. Take a look, take a listen.
I understand that our victim broke up. They had an intimate relationship for a number of years, defendant and victim. That our victim broke up with this defendant on Monday morning early. That there continued to be defendant making numerous phone calls and sending numerous texts from that time moving forward that she did not answer, did not respond to, did not want. That eventually she presented herself to the University of Michigan, cooperated in some form of investigation there. As we all now know, the defendant was at some point on Wednesday afternoon fired from his employment. He then, at some point soon thereafter, came to her apartment in the address that is alleged in the complaint, barged his way into that apartment, immediately then proceeded to a kitchen drawer, grabbed several butter knives and a pair of kitchen scissors, and began to threaten his own life I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna make you watch. My blood is on your hands. You ruined my life. And a series of very, very threatening, intimidating, terrifying, quite frankly, statements and behaviors there in that apartment. It was only then, Your Honor, when the victim, she called her attorney and then at some point indicated she was going to call the police, and then he left. And so, Your Honor, while I understand that there isn't evidence to suggest that he directly threatened the victim with any of those implements that I've indicated, the totality of the behavior is highly threatening and highly intimidating. She was terrorized, Your Honor.
Mr. Moore, could you state your name, please?
Sherrone Moore.
Sir, you are not to use alcohol, marijuana, or any other controlled substance that is not prescribed to you. You are not to possess or purchase a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You are not to engage in criminal conduct of any kind whatsoever. You may not leave the state of Michigan without permission of the court. Prior to your release, you will be placed on a GPS tether. You will not be released before that GPS tether is placed upon you. You must continue all mental health treatment as a condition of your bond. The named victim in this case will not be placed on the record. You may not have contact with that individual. That means no calling, no writing, no video chatting, no texting, no emailing, or any other form of contact the human mind can possibly fathom. No one in the world thinks that this person is going to reach out to you. Should they do so? And again, no one thinks that they're going to. You may not reply in any form or fashion. The named victim's address will not be placed on the record. You may not go to that location for any reason whatsoever. Are we understood on the no contact and no go to, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Bond will be set in the amount of $25,000 cash surety, as requested by the prosecution's office. The court does not determine innocence or guilt. This court determines flight risk and community safety. The court finds with these conditions in place, it has been met. Sir, do not violate these bond conditions. Follow all orders of the court. Stay in contact with your lawyer. That concludes this hearing.
Again, you have to remember where he once was. Now, in that description of what happened to the coach and why he ended up getting locked up, there were a couple of things that were thrown out there about this breakup and losing his job and then threatening his own life at the home of the woman who broke up with him. One thing you have to understand, that the woman we're talking about that's breaking up with him is not his wife. He has a wife and children. That woman's not his wife.
Vinny being
So
safe.
I want to read for you a statement from the University of Michigan, from the president there, because it gives you a little more insight into the backstory on how the coach goes from here and ends up all the way down here. Dear colleagues and students, earlier this week, the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics dismissed head football coach Sherrone Moore with cause for violating university policy by engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Okay, that's the victim in the criminal case, is this staff member. When the findings of the university investigation into Coach Moore's behavior were presented on Wednesday, we immediately terminated his employment. There's absolutely no tolerance for this conduct at the University of Michigan, none. The breach of trust by Coach Moore is painful for many in our community, first and foremost, the individuals directly involved in this situation. Okay, so that's the beginning of this, right? There's a breakup, and then the university finds out about the relationship, okay? All of this stuff is bad, but none of it is criminal. It's not criminal until he then goes to her house. That's what the allegations are. That's really when the crime begins. But this is sort of the foundation or the reason behind that visit to the house. Everything is crumbling around him. And it was a scary situation. Take a listen to the dispatch audio from Washtenaw County from dispatch.
Subject is called a caller told her to mail the location and now it's attacking her. They've been stalking her for months. For into my sex, they call as a month twice and they are saying that the subject is suicidal. Putting his job today.
They're also advising when you left the location on their call, he walked out with their whole knife.
Okay. So now, the question is, what are we talking about here? There's a lot of different ways to look at this entire situation and scenario, from what happened at work with this inappropriate relationship with a staff member, ends up with him losing his $6 million a year job, and then what he did afterwards. A lot of fallout from this. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, criminal defense attorney Josh Colesrud, along with former law enforcement officer and host of the Strong Enough podcast, Claudia King, and entertainment host Holland Reed. So there's a lot going on here, a lot of moving parts. I don't even know, I don't want to steer you anywhere. I want you to look at this situation and tell me what strikes you about it, what's going on here, what went wrong. Josh, start us off.
You know, when we hear home invasion and stalking, we often think of somebody in the night breaking into someone's home. But what we don't think about really is what happened in this case. And, you know, what we're doing is we're evaluating and dissecting a man's worst day in his life. And during that time, he may or may not have committed a crime. Now, let me get into it. So he's charged with one felony, which is home invasion. And in Michigan, it requires that he not be invited or not have permission. But remember, this is somebody who he was professedly in love with and had some type of relationship for at least 2 years. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he had a key and how frequent he was allowed in that home. And did you catch something that the prosecutor said? What I heard was that the alleged victim called her attorney first. She didn't call 911. She didn't call security. She didn't call the police. She called her lawyer. So that tells me that it wasn't an emergency in her mind. Either that or she was thinking dollar signs. So I think that there's a lot to uncover here that may not be criminal. And stalking, remember, it requires a pattern. And right now, there's no indication that this is anything except for an explosive single incident.
Claudia, jump in.
So I agree with some of what Josh said, and I respectfully disagree with a few things. I want to start by saying I'm really impressed with the University of Michigan that they acted swiftly, because we've seen other universities like Penn State not do that and push things under the rug. So I'm glad that they did that. I think, yes, we are watching this man in one of his worst moments. However, he caused this worst moment by an alleged years-long affair with this woman. And I also want to note that he is showing us abuser behavior with the harassing phone calls and text messages after she broke up with him, and with this threat to kill himself with a butter knife, which is really odd, but that is abusive and manipulation tactics that I think he's using there to try to affect his victim.
Vinny, I'm going to follow up with both Josh and Claudia in two different opinions. I've had this happen to me almost to the T. So this is absolutely the beginning of abuse. This is the beginning of the pattern of abuse. It is power. It is entitlement. It is someone that thought he could get away with whatever he wanted to, whether it was an affair or whether it was behavior. I had someone that broke into my house, that stole money out of my son's computer and stalked me as well. And that person is a person in perceived power. And it trickled and slowly led to abuse. So I'm happy for this person, the victim, that got out in time. And yes, Josh, she did call her lawyer first. I did the same thing, because this person that was abusing and stalking and manipulating me was a lawyer. I was not an imminent threat. So at the time, it hadn't gotten to that point. So I can completely understand what Josh is saying, and I can completely understand what Claudia is saying, is that you have to protect yourself first. But this is such a pattern of behavior. When you think you're in power, you think you can get away with anything, and you do all of these things because you just didn't get your way. And that is a common thing in relationships. I dealt with this personally, so I'm so happy that this victim got out in time.
What happens next here?
Let me tell you, so the prosecution is definitely, and first of all, Holly, I'm really sorry that that happened to you, and you make a great point that there's a domestic violence component here, and one of the things that the prosecution is gonna have to look into, as well as the defense, it was his mental state. Mental health here is going to be a huge issue, and it may affect, an affirmative defense, really. Maybe he was insane at the time that he did this because his behavior seemed so bizarre.
Let me take this in another direction. What happens to the rest of his life here, Claudia? Like, how do you recover from this? I mean, he's a young guy. He's not an old guy. He's not going to prison. If he even goes, he's not going for a long time. I don't think he'll go at all. So what happens here? How does he live the rest of his life? How does he recover from this?
He can definitely redeem himself and recover from this because, like you said, Vinny,
Vinny be so ugly,
any jail
throwing
time
shade.
other than the couple days he served leading up to today's hearing. He definitely needs some therapy. He needs to address whatever mental health issues
That's
exist.
true.
I don't necessarily think he's insane. I think he was very upset that he got fired, very upset that his whole world was crumbling down. Is he going to be the coach of Michigan again? I doubt it, but I don't think his life is over. He can redeem himself. He can come back from this. He can be a coach again. And I think he has the opportunity to show us an amazing redemption story.
Alan, how about the victim? For her, she worked at the University of Michigan, still works there. Obviously, she's not being named on court TV and other places, but go on the World Wide Web. Everyone knows who she is. So what's life going to be like for her?
I think it could be, it could go both ways. I mean, this is extremely embarrassing because she was involved with a married man. I think that's first and foremost, it's about a morality issue. On the flip side of it, she's also still a victim of someone that went out of their way to cause her, emotional harm. So if she can just plow through, we all have our stuff, right? We all make the mistakes. But at the end of the day, if she remains, I think, in as a professional and in the environment that is loving and caring, she will be just fine. But I do believe that this was his worst day, and unfortunately, it's televised, and that's the state of where we are. And this happens all the time. Not on the Jumbotron, like at the concert that we saw with the band back then, but this is still it's still a big deal. And I hate it for everyone involved because these are personal matters that sometimes you wish would just stay in the bedroom.
Yeah, when the story was about the firing, I was like, okay, that's interesting, but that's not anything we're going to talk about on our show. Then when the arrest happened, next level. Okay, what's really going on here? All right, good news. Our think tank's staying with us. When we come back, the Brian Walsh jury got the case today, but they didn't deliver one of those Friday verdicts. What's going on there? Plus, coming up next hour.